How is it going, everybody? My name is DeMarco, and I am very excited to be able to show you guys and walk through 9 brand new beautiful minutes of Star Wars Jedi Survivor gameplay. Actually, technically about 8.5 if you want to be really specific, because narrator spends about 30 seconds talking about it before we actually get into the footage. So anyway, about 9 minutes of gameplay footage to explore for Jedi Survivor, and there's a lot of things that are expanded upon from the gameplay reveal, which I thought did a very good job showing a lot of the features of Jedi Survivor. Some things brand new that we're going to dive into. Check out my full analysis of the gameplay reveal if you're interested, because there's a lot of information there I still haven't seen people talk about. So if you're excited for this game, definitely worth your time. Highly recommend it. Bit biased on that one though. And second, couple considerations before we get started. Number one is we absolutely need our buddy BD here to join us for the reveal of this gameplay. You excited, buddy? Yeah? You want to give me any spoilers about what's been going on? No? All right, he's a little quiet on the spoilers. He's been through this adventure. He knows what's going to happen, but he refuses to tell me. So anyway, the actual second important consideration is that this takes place on the planet of Koboh. Now, Koboh is a brand new planet to Star Wars for players to explore. Like that they're expanding on the universe and not just going to the ones that we already know and love. But also, it's noted that this takes place very early on in the story of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. So it's not exactly clear as to exactly what powers Kal already has versus what the developers are giving him for the sake of this gameplay in order to just show them off, right? So when we actually play the games ourselves, we might not have all of the abilities that are featured here. Important thing to note as we jump into it. But first and foremost, you can notice the expansiveness of how large these areas are, which has of course been a focus for the team at Respawn to make sure that these environments are expanded and built upon for plenty of exploration, which is very exciting. We know that there's mounts to help you traverse. We also know that there's fast travel points to get around a little bit easier, but I'm very excited to explore some of these, and they all look great from what we see. Everything here looks absolutely incredible. Do notice, I want to take note, we have the dial pad on the bottom left here, right? And this is important for a couple reasons. First and foremost, you have the single blade on the left, the double on the right, and then you have the, I can't really get it, sorry that the overlay is covering it, but the BD visor on the bottom. That's mapped to the D-pad buttons. And of course, your stims up on the top. I guess BD lost a bunch of them. He's only down to 2 from all the ones we collected before. We're at the Gorge Crash site, but we actually get our first look into new abilities that BD has. A closer look? Mainly the BD visor that can then navigate into BD binoculars. It's a very immersive way to allow players to navigate and set markers and points of interest for themselves to explore. It's going to be very helpful for these wider environments. You have different beacons you could place, which you have to provide your own meaning to. Perfectly fine. Also, do note that this is a pre-release build. I'm actually going to point out a couple things I noticed that probably could use some polish, so do stay tuned for that. Also, it's interesting that there's stuff definitively blurred here, which is probably the mission objectives that the developers don't want to spoil for you. The nice big beast, gigantic Tronto shell, which is cool to see all the new wildlife.
Now let's reach it.
And then you can transport that directly to the map. So when you place those markers down, it appears here. And we have a couple small things, right? You could remove the beacons. Very cool, I guess. Pull up a legend. Neat. The levels, as we've seen in Jedi Survivor. Also, the galaxy map that you could immediately take a look at from the planet, as well as the planet you're on itself with your percentage completion and the location that you're at within it. Notice the Mantis. We're actually going to get's good positioning. You're going to get a very good sense of where you are based on the walkthrough of this level, so we'll actually be able to see kind of trace Kal's journey as he progresses through this planet. Also notice, I do really appreciate Cameron Monaghan, who plays Kal Kestis. His voice is a little bit deeper to show that he's older. I like that. It's good representation of the character's growth and that he's actually aging, as opposed to just doing the exact same voice he did. Small, very subtle, but it is there, and I appreciate it. BD also sounds a bit different sometimes. He has some new noises.
Last time I saw a Lucre Hulk was Braca. Long time ago, Prof.
So there you go. He mentions also at the end there, Prof, which is a very nice callback. It's great attention to detail that he's kind of looking back. You could see, as for character development, that these things still weigh on Kal, even if it's just this one arguably throwaway line. it does matter. It shows that it does impact him as a character, which is why I gravitate towards the Jedi game so much, or the last Jedi Fallen Order so much, is because I really loved the characters that were there. And so these kinds of lines really help to make him feel three-dimensional, especially his relationship when some of this stuff comes in with BD over here. Make sure to check on him. He's hurting. He's in a tough place right now. So we also do notice that there is the Mantis up here. So again, it looks as though Kal kind of wandered off to the right here and then looped back around to come down the path he's in.
Last time I saw a Lucre Hulk was Braca.
Also,
Long time ago.
Not sure if this is just, it could very well just be a planet. If it is, very cool skyboxes that you have there. If it's something else like a space structure, that'd also be kind of neat to see. So a little bit curious about what we're seeing there. Kal does have the same abilities from the last game. Instead of taking away powers like a lot of these Metroidvania style games do, where you have amnesia, you forgot how to do things. Instead, Jedi Survivor expands on the abilities that you do have while you retain the old ones, which is very good. That's the right way to do a game like this. You don't need to make up some silly reason why you can't do things. Instead, innovate, push in new directions. Don't just rehash the same powers that we've already learned before, right? It's a great thing. Also, do notice, very curiously, at least I found it to be curious, right? When we start off with this shot, I said pay attention to the D-pad down here. You have the single saber on the left, the dual saber on the right. As we get back to this wall running scene, the dual saber is on the left, the single saber on the right. So they actually flip-flop. As to why, not sure. But we'll also see that bounce to the dual blade. If you watch it, you'll notice that at some point it goes to the dual blade as well. So the D-pad kind of switches.
Take him out. He's escaping. Just fight me.
I'm smiling because we actually get the original droid voices from the Star Wars Clone Wars animated series, which is great. We had that for the clones in Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. It was nice to see it there. I'm glad that the original droid voices are coming back for this. They're absolutely iconic, and I hope they have some of the same personalities as well. Really looking forward to it. It's nice to see that consistency between the universes. I'll be talking about this down here, that kind of force power bar, later on.
Hey! Oh, they're out.
It looks so badass. It looks so awesome. The combat, it's similar. There's your force push ability. A nice lunge, and then the same kind of takedown that we've actually seen in Jedi Fallen Order. If it works, why change it? But the combat, I know it's very much the same as what it was. I don't think that's a problem because it was so much fun to play through in Jedi Fallen Order, and it looks just as exciting here. It's great. I'm so excited to hop back into this world in a new way. So we've now jumped forward to the derelict dam. We can see we're a little bit closer to our beast here, and again, just how far the environments actually span. And you'll see there's like side paths that are visible, side roads that you can go down, all the different locations to explore, platforms you probably can jump on, right? There's so much depth.
Fascinating. And how did that go?
Poor droid. You hear him scream as he goes over the edge. Also, very important to Jedi Survivor is the wildlife. We've seen that with Kal's ability to kind of interact with creatures and his sympathy and empathy towards creatures in Jedi Fallen Order. It's getting expanded here with the fact that he could mount and ride them. And we also see a few more peaceful creatures, but also how wildlife interacts with other wildlife, which I do really like. So this beast sort of jumps down from a ledge here and then scares off all the birds as he does so, which is nice. I like that. I enjoy seeing that level of interaction and dynamic elements between all of the creatures in the world. So it just feels a little bit more real. These platforms on the right here, we actually see a couple times throughout the gameplay, similar looking things. I suspect that you'll need kind of your grapple hook that we see later on in order to jump to one, jump to the other, and progress, but just a new form of navigation that we'll need a tool in order to do. We'll see this beast later on. Bam! Aerial takedown looks sick. And then a B2 super battle droid as well coming into play. Force lift, which is one of the new abilities. And then some epic dual saber combat. Love the way they're slicing these droids in half. It's epic. But notice this bar is now depleted. So we saw it full before, now it's depleted. It seems to be its own separate force power. So before, when you played Jedi Fallen Order, the force slow was mapped to RB or R1 if you're playing on PlayStation, and now it appears as though it's its own thing. Maybe because Kal's just so familiar and so comfortable with the ability that it doesn't actually drain your force power. We're going to see it used in action later on, but it's just important to note that this does increase the same way that your force does. By hitting enemies and taking down enemies, you replenish that ability. Just curious as to why it's separate from the rest of your force powers. Again, I think it's because he's so attuned to it. That was the one power that Kal retained after being disconnected from the force, was the ability to slow things down. So it does make sense.
To end you.
I don't know what that ability is. He doesn't necessarily slow time when he does that. He kind of levitates his lightsabers there a little bit. Is it an automatic dodge? Is it a parry? It's not a parry. Don't exactly know what it does. Again, epic takedowns. But it does drain his force when he does that. We'll see Tim do it if you pay attention. He does it at another point where he fights some of the wildlife. This is a very cool scene because not only do we get one of the larger boss fights, but we get to find out that Kal can actually interact with the environment around him to weaponize it, which I like. But not only that, enemies will go for them as well. So if you don't use them, your enemies will, which is great to see. That's a massive improvement from the past game where it was really just a few things maybe here and there. I hope they expand on that to give you some environmental factors to play around, chuck at enemies, especially because it's able to stagger, as we saw, larger enemies such as this, which is very, very useful in a game such as Jedi Survivor. Now, what I will note is that it'd be nice if, for example, the droids down here would also be able to lift up. You're getting into some Force Unleashed territory here if you're able to force lift a bunch of things and just hurl whatever you wanted at your enemies and your foes. So probably intentional why they didn't want to go in that direction. Also, might just get really confusing if you're trying to force lift your enemy, but then you accidentally force lift the droid that's there and you didn't mean to do that, and that messes up your combat. So could see how it might cause problems, but it'd be nice to get kind of that more involved. Awesome. Epic. The combat looks so great. And then you can scan enemies like you could in the previous titles. Here we have an ambush, really highlighting a lot of the creatures. This one's cool in particular because he walks around with these two little claws, but he actually has wings. So I wonder if you could find an older version of this creature that can then fly, you know, and attack you aerially. Nice. Grapple hook, which we've seen.
We won't prospect in the gorge again.
You hear that?
No. Do it.
Yikes. So he's saying we won't prospect in the gorge again, and these guys don't want that. So you have, obviously, this group of civilians being harassed by these groups of bandits, pretty much raiders, if you want to call them that.
Call it in. Another one down. Raven.
Epic side takedown, something brand new again to Jedi Survivor. Alleged takedown. Very appropriate to have. Nice. Epic. And then again, do notice that it's the dual saber symbol. Instead of having the twin, right? Now it's the dual saber that's on the bottom here. Poor droid, man. We have one of the assassin droids here.
Chasing target.
Oh, it's just epic as it's leaping through the air in a really good animation. As it's leaping through the air, you're able to saber throw and cut it in half. Instead of it just being locked into this moment where it's invulnerable because it's launching an attack, you could still do that and it reacts to where you were able to hit it.
You think I can do that, BD?
I could just already picture how fun this is. So Boglings, again, you have a little here. Boglings was thought to be endemic only to Bogano, but clearly has moved across the galaxy. And we again get to see Kal's ability to sort of learned from the animals around him, which I like his attunement to the wildlife. I wonder if this is used as sort of a loading screen. So before we had elevators or tunnels or tight gaps that you would navigate your way through, now you have this leaping back and forth, which I'm assuming is being used to load the level as you climb. One level loads in, the other one loads out, which is a pretty good way to do it. It's a little bit more dynamic, letting the player control the movement. I don't mind loading elevators personally. I think it's a good way to do them, especially if you include dialogue to kind of keep it going on. We're now at the southern reach. It's nice to see that, you know, as we change environments, you get to see a little bit more grass. You get to see some of the water coming up, right? So the biomes within the planet, although it's kind of static with this desert-ish vibe, right? It still has different personalities based on the region you're in, which is good. And this is where we really get to see just how expansive it is. We saw this shot during the gameplay reveal, and you could see the meditation points that are all the way in the back over here, all the way over here. I noted this. Now, the sun at least appears to be somewhere over here, right? This is where a lot of the light is coming from. But you have this weird glow, and I noted this in the gameplay reveal analysis. I'm curious as to what this is, if we'll even be able to visit these large spires in general. But in the gameplay showcase, we actually see Kal journeying through. There's kind of a gorge over here. This structure we get to notice, you know, as we get closer to it throughout the gameplay reveal footage. So we ride the animal mount through kind of a little valley getting towards those gates. I did want to stay silent there just so you guys could hear the music. It's beautiful. The music in Jedi Fallen Order was really, really good. It's actually one of my favorite parts about the game. I'm glad to see that that's continuing here with the ambient soundtrack, because it really does add. I think people often underestimate how important music is for games or media or really anything. Music's vital to changing the tone. If you don't believe me, just look at like The Cat in the Hat as a horror movie on YouTube. It's very fun to watch. But music is very, very important. And so we get a lot of beautiful tracks here that we're gonna get to explore and listen to. And the transition between the ambient music into the combat music that we have here was done very well also. This is also, I do want to point out, you have 3 enemies coming from here. You have this one leaping. You have this one he's attacking. There were a couple, there's about, if you add them up, 8-ish enemies on the screen, which is more than what we've seen in Jedi Fallen Order. So it's cool that they're actually growing that to make it a little bit more difficult with just more enemies at once. I do like that. And then now we finally get to see where an ability like this will be incredibly helpful as you're trying to balance all these that are rushing and charging and attacking you. Probably very aggressive based on the difficulty that you play. As the harder the difficulty, the more aggressive the enemies will be, which can very much get in the way. But once you activate this ability, it's the force slow with all the enemies around you. Again, in Jedi Fallen Order, it was mapped to just holding down RB, and then if you had the upgraded version, you would either do one enemy, but with the upgrade you do all the enemies around you. Now it's its own separate command with pushing in both the thumbsticks, and it has 2 elements to it. One is it's separate from your force meter, but number 2 is it has a cooldown. So as Kal slices and dices through all of these enemies, you can see this one still remains frozen. The countdown isn't quite at 0 yet. And then, boom, the bar is no longer filled. As we attack enemies, the bar does fill up. As you parry, the bar fills up. And throughout just two of these creatures, which we do actually get the name for as BD scans them. Gorgers. So as 2 Gorgers attack you, we actually are able to refill that bar all the way up just from 2 of them, which I thought was interesting. Is it because, again, the developers have put in some magic? Will it take a lot longer to fill up that ability? Remains to be seen. I suspect it will be harder. to level it up than just that, or to charge it up. Notice these in the gameplay reveal, but the chests are returning, and one nice thing here, it takes a quarter of the time. It does not take nearly as long. And then, of course, the bomber jacket is probably going to be a nice welcome cosmetic improvement than the ponchos that we had in Jedi Fallen Order. Poor creature was just drinking water. So, a couple technical things that I do want to point out. First and foremost, the pathing for some of the wildlife, I guess, is a little bit off. You do see him just trying to walk into this wall here. So, you know, with the polish, maybe that's something they improve. Maybe that's something they go, not really a big deal, because that is absolutely a nitpick. You can see, again, I said we'd see these kind of bubbles, platforming elements around. So we have them up here as well as a wall running element. There's a meditation point up there, again showcasing just how far you actually can travel, and either a person or I think it's a person that's standing over here. I would really like to see, in Jedi Fallen Order, we really didn't get a moment where there was a lot of people kind of in a town or in a settlement somewhere. A little bit with Kashyyyk in Jedi Fallen Order, but it was not the main focus. So Jedi Survivor, especially with this town that's right here, I do hope that we can actually kind of see what it's like without it being entirely abandoned, and there's actual people doing their day-to-day jobs and just walking through and whatever they might have going on. I would like that. It'd be interesting to be able to walk through that environment. How do they respond if you pull out your lightsabers? Are they scared? Are they excited? Are they glad that you're here to help? Do they remember you fondly? Do they think you're traitors? You get a mix of both. I think there's a lot of dynamic storytelling elements that can come, but we didn't see too much of that in Jedi Fallen Order because all the settlements were abandoned. I like the diversity. You know, you have the same creature, but they're also different, which is a nice little attention to detail. It really is. And they're not hostile. They innately run away from you too. We're now in the southern reach of Koboh. Just take note of this over here because we're going to do a jump cut and we're going to be right next to this area when it does that jump cut. Again, you could trace the journey that previously we were all the way, you know, just back, and now we've wandered into this valley, which I do like, from where the Mantis was all the way here. And there you go. There's the immediate jump. But I did say I was going to point out a couple things I noticed. You have these weird, it looks like they're, I think it's a development thing that's actually left in the game that got caught into this demo, right? Because that, to me, looks like cubes with little light bulbs in them, which is a development asset that's still here. Again, it's a pre-release build, but it's just funny that we're able to kind of spot it. And this is the kind of things, of course, that when they took the extra month of polish, they can work to fix these things. Change the lighting, update the visuals in some areas, try to make it better. So I'm really grateful that they were able to get this delay. Of course, there's no way that this would be in the final game when it released. So, again, just nitpicking. There's the gate again, so you can see that we're closer. Now in Hunter's Quarry. And I did mention how there's sort of all these paths that you can go off and explore. And you can notice, right, you have the location off to the right here. You have this, which we're going to go into. You have a path off to the left that seems to go something that you could take a look into. So tons and tons of exploration to be done in this game. So robust. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I don't know if it was the droids that did this. Probably the bounty hunters that are in here. So it's nice to know they have no love for the Empire. All right, here's one last flaw. I looked at this a couple times. You have some very blurry textures. Again, good that the developers are taking the time that they need to improve this. You'll notice as we go through the gameplay that Kal will be actually closer up to it, but it still is as blurry as it is here. So again, game needs a little bit more polish. Nice, a saber throw, right? And that did not use... That either didn't use any force ability or just recharged as much as it drained when he was able to hit the enemies. I'm not too sure. Beautiful animations for the assassin droids. There you go. You could see that. I thought maybe it was a texture loading in and it just took some time to load, but doesn't seem to be the case as it's still blurry and it stays as such. Boom. I love the sound design as well. The sound effects for all of it are great. The animations are so good. They're so good. A little bit janky here and there. I know a lot of people in the comment section of this video in particular have said, like, why does Kal's walking animation or like slight jog animation a little bit funky? Listen, I don't mind it. I think it has a little bit of charm, to be honest, but you hear BD's beeping is a little bit, maybe he's sick. Are you sick, BD, or did you just learn some new sound effects? He doesn't know. We'll have to wait and find out. But definitely different noises coming from BD there. We still do have the psychometry, I believe it's called.
I get it. They're weird things. I'd like to know what's in them too. But
Yeah,
we
there you
don't
go,
have that kind of
psychometry.
time
We still have the psychometry ability for Kal to sense and to learn more about the environments that
So
it's
no.
in, which is
And
pretty
please stop
cool.
asking.
The lighting in this shot in particular, I love the way that this flame bounces off of the metal, hits the rocks, and reflects off the different surfaces appropriately. So that's a great attention to detail there with the lighting. And one thing that's nice to end off this footage on is that there's actually different animations to open chests than just BD simply jumping on. And although maybe or maybe not, because this is not a lock chest. BD did not need to splice this one to get it open. So who's to say, right? Could be actually that's the one animation for this, and I don't know. But anyway, we unlocked new BD1 materials for to customize BD, which was a nice little highlight there. And that's all we have coming from IGN first. They did say stay tuned to IGN for more about Jedi Survivor coming in February, which is good. I really want this game to continue to show itself off. It looks beautiful. It looks great. I think it can draw people in to the franchise because it does seem as much fun as it is, and that was a beautiful showcase to get that across. And admittedly, they took an extra month to delay. Sure, there's some bugs in there that they need to squash before the game comes out. Realistically, the delay isn't that long, so it means it's in a pretty good state. I'm feeling pretty confident about it, but I'm glad that they're adding in that extra level of polish before it does come out. And thankfully, this was number 39 on trending a little while ago. Now it's number 41. It's going down a little bit, but it's nice to see that it might have been even higher than that when it did first come out. Of course, it's been many hours since this was released, but nice to see that it's getting that level of, wasn't showing you guys. It's number 41 on trending here. Wasn't showing you guys that. So it's nice to see that it's getting the attention that it deserves. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy. And as always, I hope to see you all next time. So long, everybody.